climate change, systemic racism, gender inequality. We live in an age of heightened awareness. I mean, after all, we are a generation that is the most informed, more than any other generation that has preceded us. We have our foot on the pedal when it comes to the world's issues. When we see injustice, we strike, because after all, we are the most informed. Or are we? Is this generation of changemakers a reality, or a mere self-gratifying delusion? Well, I'll tell you a story. I was out late with some friends last summer, and the topic of income inequality arose. Now, one of the girls I was speaking to, she comes from a wealthy background, and she was telling me, look, Dion, I cannot do anything about my position of privilege. All I can do is recognize I have it, and that deed in itself is a service. Well, I asked her, how precisely? And she said, by separating herself from those who are ignorant, she is proving that she recognizes something that others don't see. Well, this got me thinking, because I see this logic amongst our generation so pervasively. And I think this is fundamental to why current social activism is not working. In fact, I believe that youth activism is in fact both ineffective and even dangerous today. It is fundamentally rooted in pessimism and polarization, and does not have organized forces nor clear objectives. So, what does successful social activism even look like? Well, to put it in simple terms, firstly, a focused objective. We need to have something clear, specific, and attainable. This way we can amass a large group of people to all strive for the same goal. That's where organized forces come in. Different players, different stakeholders who come together under a shared vision. And finally, this may sound arbitrary, but optimism. For a group of people with a strong collective morale will yield far better results than those who are fatalistic and pointing fingers and not believing in a better future. Does any of that sound familiar? This fatalistic rhetoric. Think of a day when we're all extinct. That's what we're consumed by. You go online, that's all you ever read. Well, that's precisely where social activism occurs today. Online, predominantly. It's no longer outside. It's not on the streets. It's not in front of Parliament. It's right here, in our pockets, hidden behind the safety of our phone screens. Now, what's a prime example of this? Take Kony 2012. This was a massive internet movement. It occurred when a group called Invisible Children in the United States made a short documentary film about Ugandan war criminal Joseph Kony. Now, the general goal was to bring this man to justice and educate the Western world about his actions. This was a massive success. In the span of 2 weeks, 100 million views on YouTube. It seemed as though the whole world was watching to see what would happen to Joseph Kony. I mean, celebrities flocked, news agencies gathered. We were all waiting. And well, on the surface, it seemed as though there was a clear objective and some people working together. However, when digging a little deeper, most people involved didn't take the time to actually research what they were fighting for. And well, let's take a look at the results. Joseph Kony, to this day, has never been sent to justice. Furthermore, 6 years prior to the film's release, he already left Uganda. Secondly, the Ugandan people never asked for this. This was a complete Western-led initiative. In fact, if you simply go on YouTube, you can find numerous videos of Ugandan people complaining about this film, saying that it's an overly simplistic representation as well as a westernized depiction of the situation in their country. And finally, what happened? Well, talking about tangible action, that year, Lonely Planet called Uganda one of the top places to visit in Africa. And overnight, tourism rates plummeted, affecting the country's economy and damaging job opportunities. Here's where modern or contemporary social activism falls, because we don't actually take the time to truly understand. We're hidden behind our phone screens. We live in an age of an illusion of true awareness. The Pew Research Center found that 50% of Americans consider themselves politically active. They'll post reels, they'll post hashtags about political movements. A mere 19% researched information on protests and rallies, however, after conducting this. Is that not a terrifying statistic? And we're all to blame. We all like to point fingers saying it's the man upstairs, it's the government, it's whoever. But really, the responsibility falls on us. And that connects back to self-awareness. And an interesting phenomenon we can call ironic distance. Now, ironic distance is the belief that self-awareness and self-awareness only is what one needs to fight the world's biggest problems. We can spot problems. We can identify them clearly. But there's an ironic barrier between us. Hey, I recognize I'm self-aware. That's the only step I need to take. I mean, I've heard this. I bet you guys have all heard this. I mean, just take an example like fast fashion. We are all very aware of the ramifications of fast fashion. It's no secret that it uses child labor and is a highly polluting industry. Why is it that it's such a booming industry? Well, all it takes is a large group of people who all recognize the problem, but don't do anything directly to fight it. We are all convinced that we are somehow morally righteous, morally superior because we precisely recognize the problem. But does that change anything? No. Take another instance, like social media usage. We are very much aware of the negative implications of incessant social media using. For instance, higher rates of depression or anxiety. Why is it then that we continue to talk about this? I mean, we're the kind of people that will repost a reel about the negative effects on social media on Instagram. I've seen this. Here's the problem again. None of us take personal accountability. We love to point the finger, but it's all on us. We are part of the problem. So, how do we even start to solve this? Where can we go from here? Well, it would be very ironic for me to come on stage, name all these problems, and simply walk off. Thank you very much. No, okay, but really, how do we start to improve this? Well, I think personally, for me, I think cultivating media literacy is absolutely paramount. We need to be able to navigate our intense realm of mass media today. It makes no sense to throw your child into the ocean before he's learned how to swim. Just like I don't buy my friend a car before he's learned how to drive. In the same fashion, it's highly irresponsible to give teenagers, young people, phones and technology with so much power, who don't even know how to use it. Which is where media literacy comes in. And it's twofold. It goes two ways. On the one hand, we need to take the responsibility, do our research, by questioning everything. Everything we read, everything we see, who made it, for whom, and for what purpose. Furthermore, existing institutions should advocate for media literacy. For instance, schools. I think schools should teach this. If it's not a class of its own, it can be incorporated into already existing classes. Say, in a UWC context. I mean, in history class, we often do source-based analyses. Why not connect it to something today? Take a piece of political information from the past, connect it to, say, something today. Find similarities. Things like this would be drastically beneficial. Secondly, proactive local communities. I don't mean the global connection on our phones, but I mean one-on-one, you and me. We can create personal discussion groups as well as connect with different stakeholders all throughout local communities. That's something we see that's very lacking. The rhetoric of us, we always like to say, oh, it's us versus them. It's us versus the system, whatever the system is. Most of us can't even define what we're talking about. If we have clear and tangible goals, it makes it far easier to achieve change. The problem with intersectionality is that when we're fighting every problem, we're fighting no problem at all. So, let's be focused. I mean, take Malala, for instance. She focused on women's education, a very specific subject. She could have picked a plethora of issues, but she picked that one. And she's massively successful for that. In the same way, we need to be focused. And that's what media literacy helps with, but also proactive communities. By engaging with different stakeholders, be it NGOs, government, local communities, etc. Right? NGOs can facilitate and educate youth-led organizations, give a lot of insight into helping them. Furthermore, local communities can help with youth-led organizations and facilitate areas for debates and discussions, one-on-one, to truly educate us. And then, what about government? Eventually, as we begin to research and understand, We can perhaps work in youth parliaments, and then go upstairs, and then truly make change. It starts off small and then it grows. But it's not a matter of a revolution in our pockets. And finally, over time, what I said previously, we become personally accountable for the world's problems, become our problems, as we're actively engaging on a daily basis in our local communities. It's no longer a matter of us versus them, it's a matter of purely us. So, this is what I see. It's a synthesis of modern technology and information with old-fashioned debating and discussing, and together, I think we're on the road to a good future. So, awareness is the first step, followed by an awareness of one's own awareness. And then finally, taking and implementing tangible action. That is our road to change. Thank you.